So in our statistics class, you're going to see that we use the term numerical summary. So numerical summary is nothing but a number that kind of describes the data set. So when we talk about the mean, which is the same as average, we know how to calculate the average. Add all numbers, divide by the total number of numbers. And when we talk about the median, mean and median are numbers that kind of describe the center of the distribution, depending on whether it is symmetrical or skewed. We can use either the mean or the median to describe the center of the distribution. So if I say, give me a number that describes the center of a symmetrical distribution, you could give either the mean or the median of that particular distribution. So the mean and the median will be more or less the same for a symmetrical distribution. And both numbers can be used to describe the center. Now, let's look at this first data set. For example, if you scored, let's say 9, 9, and 9 in 3 quizzes, okay, so your average at that point, let's say, was 9, because when you take the average of 9, 9, and 9, it's like 9 plus 9 plus 9, which is 27 divided by 3, it's 9. So the average is 9. Let's just say that on the 4th quiz, you scored a 0. Do you see how that's going to affect your average? Now you're going to add 0 plus 9 plus 9 plus 9, which is 27, but now you're going to divide by 4, and your average is 7. So if you think about this first data set, it is left skewed. It got left skewed because we added a very low number here. If it is left skewed, then the mean gets dragged towards the skew, towards the direction of the skew, which means the mean becomes lower if the numbers are skewed to the left. And you can see clearly when you think in context of your scores on quizzes, it's quite easy to see how that happens. Now, suppose you scored 5, 5, and 5 on the first 3 quizzes. Your average on the first 3 quizzes was a 5. So that's 5 plus 5 plus 5 divided by 3. So your mean or the average is a 5. However, if on the 4th quiz you scored a 10, clearly your average is going to increase from a 5 to roughly a 6.2. So 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 10 becomes a 25. When we divide by 4, it becomes a 6.2. So the mean gets pulled towards the skew, which means the mean moves away from the center and goes towards the skew. And in this case, the mean gets pulled to the right, which means it increases from 5 to 6.2 if there is a right skew. And in the first case, it goes from 9, it gets pulled down to 7 because of the left skew. So the mean is not a good representative of the center if the distribution is skewed either to the left or to the right, which means either if you have low outliers or high outliers, then the mean or the average is not a good indicator of the center. So instead of the mean, we use the median, which is resistant to outliers. So median would be a numerical summary that describes the center of a skewed distribution. But if it is symmetrical, either the mean or the median, which would both be equal, mean would roughly be equal to the median in the case of a symmetrical distribution. You could use either the mean or the median to describe the center of the distribution. Now, when we see the 5 number summary, we can easily see if we have the 5-number summary, we can easily see that there is a skew. Let's look at the first example. We have minimum of 1, Q1 is 4, median is 5, and Q3 is 6, and the maximum is 9. So if I graph this, you'll notice that the distance between the minimum and Q1 is equal to the distance between Q3 and the max, and that tells us that it is a more or less symmetrical distribution. However, look at the second example. The minimum is 1, Q1 is 4, 5, and 6. Q1, median, Q3 are 4, 5, and 6, just like the previous example. However, I'm going to increase the max to 15. And if I graph this to scale, do you see how the distance or the difference between the maximum and Q3 is much larger than the difference between Q1 and the minimum? This tells us that the distribution is skewed to the right. So if we have to describe a numerical summary, if we had to give a numerical summary that describes a symmetrical distribution, if we know it's symmetrical, all we need is 2 numbers, x bar and the standard deviation s. These 2 numbers are a numerical summary that describe the entire distribution. The x bar describes the center, s describes the spread, s is the standard deviation. However, if the distribution is skewed, then x bar and s are not a good description, will not give us a good description of the skewed distribution. We need the 5-number summary to describe the entire distribution, not just the center. The median describes the center, and all the 5 numbers together describe the entire distribution. If you see examples 1 and 2, you can see how they describe the entire distribution. So to summarize, a numerical summary that describes the center, we are only talking about the center here, of a symmetrical distribution can either be the mean or the median. A numerical summary that describes the center, only the center of a skewed distribution, is the median rather than the mean, because the mean gets pulled in the direction of the skew. But if you have to describe the entire distribution, not just the center and the spread, then for a symmetric distribution, all we need is 2 numbers, which is the mean, x bar, and the standard deviation, s. However, if the distribution is skewed and we want to describe the entire distribution, then we will need the 5-number summary, which is the minimum, Q1, median, Q3, and the maximum to describe the entire distribution.